Hi, everyone. This is Tracy and Trevor from Future Real Estate Enterprises. And as mobile home park industry professionals, we work hard to add value to the buying, holding, and selling of your mobile home park investments. Too often, mobile home park owners tell us that they've been considering selling their communities, but are scared and unsure of what their next step is because they're sitting on a potentially large capital gains tax bill. Now, while we do not provide tax or legal advice, we do take these concerns seriously, and we dig deep to get answers from some of the top experts in their respective fields. That is why today we are connecting you with Jake Carpenter of Carpenter Capital, who is an expert in his field of capital gains deferral and an advanced life consultant, and Gary Lester, a successful business owner and mobile home park investor like yourself, who sought out guidance from Jake at Carpenter Capital upon the sale of his parks. Specifically, we've invited both of them here today to talk about deferring capital gains on the sale of appreciated assets through a deferred sales trust and how it has worked in real time. So Gary, why don't we start with you and tell us your story?
Yeah, Tracy, Trevor, thank you very much for having us on. It's a pleasure. I guess where to start? I entered and exited the mobile home park industry. I originally started in 2010. I was a Lonnie dealer, if people know what that term is. That's people who flip mobile homes, individual mobile homes in parks, usually on rented lots. And I got into investing into mobile homes. I lived in a mobile home park, and the one next to me came available. And over the course of trial and error, I figured out how to make some money on rolling mobile homes, essentially. So I call it poor man's real estate. For less than $10,000, you can get a rental property, pay cash for it, right? And so I had started this because I needed to diversify my income stream after the 2008 recession. My company that I own and operate, that does environmental consulting services, we got hit with the kind of the squeeze and had to do some layoffs. And I said, I need to diversify my income stream here. It's all I've got is my company, and I don't have a 401k or anything. So I decided to diversify, and mobile homes seemed to be the easiest thing to get into. And I was somewhat familiar with them just because I lived in parks. So I ended up scaling up. I had at one point, I had 32 mobile homes in my portfolio, and these were either rentals or I was holding the paper on them, like the Lonnie deals, just holding the notes on them. I would buy, fix, flip if I could make a good profit quick. And interestingly, I kind of hooked up with this partner. It ended up embezzling me, and it was a very painful, stupid tax that I paid. I trusted the guy, and but as a result of that embezzlement, it turned into something really, really fortuitous, and I'll get to that later on. But I think in all total I had probably 70 deals before I stopped, doing individual mobile homes. So in 2014, I think it was 14 or early 15, I went to Frank Rolf's mobile home park boot camp down in Las Vegas. I was Googling mobile home parks while I was in a Delta club in Salt Lake City, killing 3 hours. His information came up, and it really intrigued me. I knew a lot of the park owners because I was operating in their parks. And this just kind of caught my attention, so I signed up for his information and stuff, and then I got into his ad for the boot camp, and I said, this is pretty interesting. So and like I said, it was 2014 or 2015. I went down to Las Vegas, and I don't know, it probably cost me $1,900 to register, $2,200 to register plus travel, and but that was the best investment I ever made in myself, more so than a college degree, I think. So and yeah, I cannot speak highly enough of what I learned there, and I came out of that on fire. I said, I'm going to save every penny I can, and within 3 years I'm going to have enough to buy myself a mobile home park. Well, it happened in less than a year. So, yeah, I saved, I had a pretty good savings already. And, so what happened was I was this one park in Moscow that I wasn't in yet, but I was looking at, and I was talking to the manager, and I told her about, there were some abandoned trailers, and I usually go in and fix them up, and say, here, give me the trailer, I'll fix it, and then I'll pay the lot rent and that kind of a thing, and get it sold off and get you some cash flow and make me some money, so that most park owners were pretty amenable to that, especially if they were overburdened with abandoned trailers. So I was talking to the manager and told her what had happened about me being embezzled by this guy down in Boise, and I mentioned his name, and she said, really? The owner of this park used to be in business with him, and something similar happened to him. I'm like, ooh, interesting. So, and this is 300 miles away, right? So, anyway, I called up the owner, and I said, hey, my name's Gary. I said, I don't want to bring up a sore spot, Ken, but, I was talking to your manager, and I understand you and I have a mutual connection in this person. And there was this dead silence on the phone. I'm like cringing, right? And I said, I just want to let you know, he darn near ran me into the ground, and he darn near bankrupted me. And I understand that something similar happened to you. And he started opening up. And for 20 minutes, I listened to him tell me my story. And it's like, whoa, this is spooky, right? I think hair stood up on the back of my neck. So I ended up going to lunch with him. We really bonded, right? And over this mutual, scallywag,
trauma.
Yeah, this was the mutual trauma. And so I started talking to him and whatnot, and then I found out his park was actually listed for sale, and I said, oh, that's interesting, and he says, yeah, but we're at loggerheads. I got all these park owned homes on inventory, and he doesn't want them, and I don't want them. And I said, well, I'm looking to do the rentals and stuff like that. I said, why don't you package them up, sell them to me? I'll take them off your balance sheet, asset list, whatever. Then you guys can move forward. He goes, okay. So he gave me an offer I almost couldn't refuse. And then I looked at the homes, they're pretty old, so I cut it in half, and he said, okay. So I got like 12 mobile homes for $12,000, and so I commenced to fixing them up and renting them and flipping them and stuff, and made my money back pretty quick. And a couple months later, I called him. I said, how's your deal going? He said, no, we're still stuck. I said, I don't know, we're just not coming to terms. And I said, well, what's your bottom line on this park? And he said, $850,000 is about right. And I said, okay, let me do some number crunching and get back to you. So I called Rolf, did a quick deal review. If you go through his boot camp, you get his cell phone number, and you can do a deal review anytime for free. And so it's like 94 spaces, $850,000. It's like 45% vacancy rates, and lot rents were, I don't know, 200 some odd bucks, or 270 bucks or something. He said, get that thing under contract right now. He said, this is going to make you a lot of money. So he actually sent me a contract template. I edited it and stuff, sent it to the guy, and we got it under contract. And then of course I had to convince a bank to give me a loan, but which turned out to be pretty easy, actually. I'd been talking to banks are always courting me for my business account for my day job, and I had this one bank buy me 3 different lunches. So I'm like, okay, these guys are hungry, So talked to them, said, hey, not interested in my company, but I got a mobile home park I'm interested in buying. Do you guys do that? And they said, oh yeah. So we got everything together. I put so the purchase price was $850,000. I put $120,000 into the deal. The seller carried back 10%, and then the bank did the rest. And then they gave me like a $90,000 line of credit for operational improvements and stuff like that. So we got that going. And when I bought the park, like I said, it was 44% vacant. The way they were managing it, it wasn't quite break even, the cash flow, but I ended up doing all of Frank's magic on turning around the parks. I gave homes away and said, basically said, here's if you pay lot rents, you do these things to the home, fix it, I will give you the title, and then I'll give you 3 months lot rent credit, and I had 11 people take me up on those immediately, right? So boom, I had cash flow coming in and got it above water. And then I did all my stuff to clean up and fix up and deferred maintenance. I had $80,000 worth of tree removal to do, water lines to fix and stuff like that. But I did all that. And in a year and a half, I had gotten the occupancy up and I was able to do a cash out refi. And so a year and a half later, after putting $120,000 in, I pulled $630,000 out. And I said, okay, this is fun. So
heck yeah.
Yeah. And I just kept doing what I was doing. I bought 10 new homes using the cash program, speculative homes and 21st mortgage program. Bought 10 new homes, brought them in, set them up, really changed the character of the park, with the new homes coming in. And then another 2 years later, I did another cash out. I got the occupancy up to over 80% at that point. I did another cash out refi and pulled an additional 1.1 million out. So that worked out really well. And so long story short, I got that park up to 100% occupancy. I was able to get the city to allow year-round RVs in, which got me to that 100% because it was just kind of like, not quite there. And so I got it there about 2020-ish, I think, or 2019 or 2020. And in 2020 and 21, I ended up, as a result of my networking with the neighbor down the road had 2 parks. I bought his 2 parks, off-market deal. And then there was 2 additional parks on just outside our city that people that I knew just from networking, and I had buying their parks. So I bought 4 parks in the course of about a year. So I had 5 total. Now those last 4 parks, I basically bought 4 parks for $20,000 down. I put $5,000 earnest money on each of them. The same bank was able to look at all the equity I had in my big park and just kind of, use that as collateral. So they did 70% LTV, and then I talked the sellers into carrying back 30%. So it was basically 100% financing. So I bought $2.5 million for real estate for $20,000. And so yeah, and I did the same thing. I just fixed them up and filled them up and stuff, cash, and so here I was in 2021 and 2022, and I was now I got 5 parks. I got a full-time day job. I got 250 lots. And I'm starting to feel a little bit stretched on the park operations side, and I'm not giving it enough energy and to get all the parks up to the level I want. So I'm starting to feel this. I've either got to hire somebody, or got to get some help. And I didn't want to create another company with employees. I already had 80 employees on this one. So I was feeling this, and then about that time, it was November of 21, my father got diagnosed with lung cancer, and we knew it wasn't good. And I'm 2,600 miles back away in New York State. I'm here in Idaho, and I'm the oldest of the 3 siblings, and they kind of looked to me for, some leadership, I guess. And so I started spending some time back there, and the brokers were always calling, always looking to buy put offers on the parks, and as everybody gets the cards, they get the phone calls, they get the emails and stuff like that. And I was always telling them, I'm really looking to buy. I'm looking to buy more. So here, and I would just tell them what I'm looking for, and they'd put me on their list. Well, one guy calls me up, and I give him the same story. I'm really looking to buy, and I made a kind of turned out to be a fateful comment, and I said, but you know, if I could get my portfolio value up to 10 million, I think I'd sell the whole thing in one shot. And he says, well, what do you tell me about your portfolio? So I got 5 parks, 250 spaces, blah, 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 lot rents. He said, okay, okay, thank you. 3 days later, he calls me back and says, Gary, I got an offer for 10 million for what you've got right now. I'm like, whoa. I had figured it was 7.5, maybe 8. I figured I had another couple years to go, maybe 3 years to go to get there, which I wasn't looking forward to with my dad's situation. And I had to stop and I had to pause. And I said, is this a joke? He goes, no, we work with a solid buyer. He's buying lots of parks. And I said, okay, listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. I said, people put these high numbers out there up front, get me on the hook, that kind of stuff, start talking. And then in the end, they start chiseling down. I said, I'm telling you right now, 10 million at close or no deal. I'm not even going to talk. So started going through all the due diligence, got it under contract, all the stuff. And but backing up a little bit, about a month prior to this, I called Jake back because I'd met Jake 6 months before this call from the broker. I'd met Jake. And I said, Jake, you were talking about that tax deferral thing. And I said, where you could, defer taxes for 10 years. And because I don't want to do this 1031 thing. And I'm looking at almost $2 million in taxes here. And I said, is that real? And he said, yeah, it's real. Why? I said, well, I got a deal and I might need you. So we started talking. In the meantime, we're getting everything going with the broker or with the buyer. Jake put me in touch with the trustee. We get this deferred sales trust thing into the picture, and I'm starting to think, okay, I can probably pull this off and not have to pay the taxes. And thank God I'm not going to have to 1031. I do not want the hassle of a 1031 with everything going on in my family. Trying to find properties deferred to. I want out. I want to go passive. I want to just not operate real estate anymore. I'm done. I mean, I had fun. It was great. I loved it, but it served its purpose, and that season had ended in my life. So that was kind of that turning point for me. And thank God I had met Jake 6 months prior and had an out. So it was November of 2022. We closed on all the properties. The trust has been set up. The deferred sales trust has been set up, and Jake will tell you about that. And I have been in passive real estate investments, pulling out interest earned. I'm pulling out some of the interest earned, and it's twice what I was taking out while I was operating the parks. I got all my time back. I got all my evenings back, my weekends back. No more tenants, toilets, trash, phone calls in the middle of the night, all that stuff. I feel like I'm at peace, and I got this steady kind of like mailbox money or annuity coming in now. It's not an annuity, but yeah, it functions the same. And so just real happy with my whole career in and out of mobile home parks. And I'm very thankful that I ran into Jake when I did, because I think my financial situation would look a lot different.
Okay, Jake, do tell.
All right. Well, Gary has become a good friend of mine. Obviously a great success story. So let me introduce myself. And Tracy and Trevor, I want to thank you for having me on. My name is Jake Carpenter. I'm with Carpenter Capital, Carpenter Financial Group. First of all, I also want to give some disclosures. I'll not be giving any investment tax or legal advice of any kind. So please consult with your professionals before you make any financial decisions. So who am I? I'm a nationwide specialist in 2 areas. First, I specialize in building strategies to help you defer capital gains tax. And second, I specialize in the redeployment and reinvestment of that deferred capital through traditional and non-traditional investment methods to create both passive and active investment opportunities. So today I'm going to be spending most of my time featuring one of many capital gains deferral strategies that I work with. And each strategy can be used independently or alongside of other strategies to achieve the goal each individual, partnership, or business owner wants to achieve. After I review the featured strategy, if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about a few other strategies that can be used instead of or alongside of this featured strategy. Keep in mind, no one strategy is better than another. They're just tools to be used to help position you where you want to be. More than likely, you, your CPA, your attorney, and your real estate broker has probably not heard of some of these strategies, and there's nothing wrong with that. My goal is to educate you on the very basics of how these strategies work so that you'll know enough to determine if it's worth doing some additional due diligence. My ultimate goal is not to sell you on a particular deferral strategy. My goal is to educate and empower each one of you guys to know your options when it comes to exiting your highly appreciated business and real estate, and ultimately put you in the position that you want to be in and not the position the IRS wants you to be in. If nothing else, think of this as an introduction to a friendly specialist who you can use to find out what your options are and if you're headed in the right direction. Make sure to save this video, watch it a few times, and take a lot of notes. With that said, let's get into it. I'm going to share the screen now. Here we go. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Today, our featured deferral strategy is called the Deferred Sales Trust. The Deferred Sales Trust is a tax deferral strategy, not a tax elimination strategy. The Deferred Sales Trust is a type of IRC Section 453 installment sale. So we're going to have some time for questions at the end. So I'm going to walk through this, and then we'll answer some questions at the end. Now, the installment sale is also known as a seller carryback sale. Under this code section, the seller can achieve significant capital deferral benefits by not receiving actual or what we call constructive receipt of the proceeds at the time of the sale. Instead, they receive payments made to them over time. Moreover, the Deferred Sales Trust has great flexibility, a lot greater flexibility than the conventional installment sale with respect to investment selection, in that you can literally invest in anything. Better flexibility with risk management because you can diversify from one asset into many different real estate assets and investment opportunities, and better flexibility in the repayment time frame. You're not locked into any specific payment plan. Gary mentioned deferral for 10 years, but at the end of the 10 years, Gary can renegotiate the terms of another promissory note and push it out another 10 years, and he can keep going and going and going. And we'll get into that a little bit more later in the Q&A. So how does the Deferred Sales Trust work? And I have a little bit of a flow chart here because there's a little bit to it, but it's still pretty simple. So let's talk about it with 7 steps. So step 1, you, with your mobile home park, your $10 million mobile home park, you're going to sell that to a third-party trustee in consideration for a secured installment contract. So that's right here. This is your mobile home park, $10 million. You're selling it to the trustee in consideration for an installment contract. 2, the third-party trustee buys the asset. Okay, right here. 3, the trustee sells the asset to the ultimate buyer for $10 million, and then the buyer funds the trust in exchange for taking possession of the asset. So let's just review really quick. It's super simple. The trust purchases your mobile home park for $10 million turns around and sells it to the buyer for 10 million. So the trust has zero capital gains. It purchased for 10, it sold for 10. Okay. All right. Now that the trust is funded, here, step 5, the trust is funded. You work with a trust's investment professional. That is me. I'm the trust investment professional to approve and build an investment strategy and the terms of the note right here. The terms based upon your risk tolerance, financial goals, needs, and objectives. So we put together, basically, I work with you as the seller and the trustee to put together an investment strategy and whatever terms you want on the note. So the note might be written for 5%, 7%, 9%. Then we have to build an investment strategy that will provide that income payment to you from the trust. Okay. All right. Notes are generally structured for 10 years with a balloon payment at the end. So this is what Gary was referring to. But you can continue to renegotiate at the end of the 10th year to restructure a new note for an additional 10 years of deferral. In essence, you can continue to kick the can down the road. All right, now in step 6, the invested funds are going to go to work immediately to begin to generate the income needed to make the payment that's stated in your promissory note. So if it's a $10 million mobile home park and you've structured your note to pay out 5%, I need to build, working with you, the seller, I need to build you an investment portfolio that's going to pay out $500,000 a year for the next 10 years. Okay. That's what the trust owes back to you on a monthly, quarterly, or annual basis. And you can choose how you want to receive those payments, either monthly, quarterly, or annually. Now, number 7, the seller begins to receive those payments from the trust based on the terms of the note. So keep in mind, the note terms are flexible and can be amended. Income can be initially deferred or altered by making changes to the note. This should not be done frequently. I usually suggest once a year if you're going to do it. And anytime you receive, now here is a big one. Anytime you receive a portion of the principal, so if we sold a $10 million asset, that 10 million in the trust is 10 million of principal. We owe capital gains on that. Sometimes people will want to take some of that, not just interest on it. So in essence, what we're doing is a zero down payment, interest only promissory note. And should you choose, you can take some principal, let's say $1 million of principal, and you'll pay capital gains tax on only $1 million, and then take just interest off the rest. So if you take any principal, you're going to pay capital gains based on the amount of principal you take out. If you take out 100,000 of principal, 100,000 is what you're going to get taxed or at the capital gains rates. Most of my clients, similar to Gary, they're going to take interest only and leave the principal alone. And in many cases, what they're going to want to do is actually grow the principal to generate more income over time. And generally, we can usually provide a lot more income than you're currently receiving on your current asset. And most of my clients, they don't really like the stock, bond, and mutual fund markets, although you can invest in anything you want. They tend to want to be back in passive income producing real estate where they can get the benefits of the real estate without having to deal with the trash, the toilets, the tenants, the liability, and the management, right? So does any of this, do you have a question on any of this? I want to pause just to see if anyone's got a question.
Sounds like you get rid of all the bad parts and you keep all the good parts.
And that's part of what the due diligence process is all about, is to make sure your individual needs and situations fit within the boundaries of this strategy. Again, this strategy isn't a good strategy or bad strategy. It's great for the right person. And that's what we try to help you do, is to evaluate whether this makes sense for you.
And Jake, you say in step 2 that third-party DST trustee buys the asset. So that, yeah, exactly. So that sounds to me like, do I have to go out and start, beating the bushes or to find that DST trustee to buy my asset? I mean, can you talk a little bit more about that transition?
Yeah, so here's the great thing is, I would tell you this. If you have any capital gains deferral issues, questions, or want to use the deferred sales trust, I am your guy that has the entire team behind me, the trustee, the attorneys, everything that you need. We walk by your side. We work with your tax professionals, your attorneys, your financial planners. So everyone you need to work out this strategy is already on a team that I have.
Jake, question for you. I know the answer to this, but one of the questions I had was like, I feel like I'm putting my money into the hands of somebody I don't know, right? And so there's a certain, in my mind, unknown factor, the risk factor, but you guys were able to coach me through that and get me to really get comfortable with the concept and how it's done, and it's a normal way of doing business in many cases. The trust itself, 10 years. I had the question earlier. Can I unwind that trust? I mean, can I dissolve it at some point? So can you talk about that?
Yeah. So in essence, everyone involved is a fiduciary. There cannot be any investments made without your approval. They do have to be approved by the trustee. So you got to think of this deferred sales trust as a 401k. All right. As long as the proceeds stay inside the account, the trust account, or the 401k account, it's deferred. But there is a trustee, so you have to get approval from the trustee to move the investments. And the only reason why the trustee is there is to make sure that you're making decisions that are going to align with your best interests. You can't put it all into Bitcoin if you don't have a high risk tolerance, so on and so forth. Again, you can't move funds unless you have approval from you. And I'm not sure, Gary, did that answer your question? There was something else.
Part of it, but it was about, hey, if I need the money all at once, I need to have it. Can I unwind the trust? Is it revocable? Kind of a, yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually not an irrevocable trust. It is a business trust that can only do business with you and your spouse. The promissory note is in the name of whatever entity sold the asset. So if your trailer park was in the name of your LLC, your promissory note will be in the name of the LLC, and you become a creditor of the trust. So think of it as the bank is the creditor of the mortgage. You get a mortgage with the bank. If you don't pay, the bank has the all the rights and the powers to take that asset back. And as a creditor of the trust, you also have that same power. You can say, hey, I just want to unwind this thing. I want to pay the capital gains tax. I want to walk away. You can absolutely do that. The other thing is what if I don't do my job? What if I'm not able to produce the returns that we need to produce to fulfill the promissory note payments? You can also, for lack of performance, unwind the trust and basically take possession of that asset, just as a creditor would do, or a bank would do in a mortgage when someone doesn't pay. Does that answer your question?
That does, yeah. Because that gave me a little bit more comfort with, hey, this money isn't gone for 10 years. If I need it, I can get it,
That's exactly right. And some people think of this as, oh my gosh, I'm giving up control. And what you are is, you may be giving up unilateral control, but if you had unilateral control, you would have constructive receipt, and then you would have a taxable event. So all we're doing is we're using a third-party trustee right here to be the custodian, if you will, just like you have a custodian of your 401k money. they are the custodian just to make sure you're following the rules so you don't trigger something called constructive receipt. Any other questions? And I'll move on here.
You said that someone can invest in real estate through the trust. Where do you guys where do they find the deals? Are they going out to the open market, or are these maybe deals that are coming to you through other clients?
Yeah, so I have an extensive network of people that I find a lot of investment opportunities. Gary and I, we're constantly looking for new things. Constantly new deals are coming to me. Most of my clients, they want to be passive, which means they want to invest in real estate, but they don't want to deal with the trash and the toilets and the tenants. So we're doing things like very, very conservative real estate based stuff that's professionally managed by folks that know what they're doing. They generally want higher than average returns, something more than they would get in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds. We try to keep some of it liquid, very conservative, maybe money market, T-bill type positions. But they can invest in real estate based things both passively and actively, Trevor. So if someone like Gary comes to me in let's say 5 or 6 years and he says, hey, you know what, Jake, I think I want to buy another mobile home park. And I think I'm going to need about $1 million. So basically, I work with Gary and the trustee to, when assets sell and we reposition to make $1 million available, Gary goes out and opens up an LLC. He becomes the general partner. The trust partners with Gary through the LLC to be the limited partner and provide the $1 million. Gary becomes the general partner who manages and runs runs the actual project actively, and he can use $1 million still tax deferred to purchase the mobile home park and to just keep going with what he was doing. Now, generally the mobile home park is going to take an ownership interest, like about a 10% ownership interest in that LLC, because remember, step 5 on this chart, I have to the trust has to invest in something to provide those note payments back to the owner, the original seller. Okay. So that mobile home park purchase can be an investment that the deferred sales trusts invests in that can generate some of that return and income to Gary, who's the note holder. And it's beautiful because let's say he turns that $1 million mobile home park into a $5 million park. Now he can sell that, wrap that back up into the trust, and get another promissory note for whatever the note proceeds are. And we do it all over again. It's just rinse and repeat. So what I'm getting at here is even if you want to be passive for 10 years, then you decide, hey, the kids are grown and gone. They're through high school. I wanted to hit pause so I could go to the games and participate in all the activities at school. Now the kids are in college. I want to take this money and go actively pursue some new projects. I don't want to pay the capital gains tax. So I'm going to partner with my trust. I'm going to fund the money into the LLC through a partnership with my trust, and I'm going to go out and use the proceeds in the trust in an active way. And then I'll hit pause later on when I'm in my 60s and 70s.
Brilliant.
So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty flexible. And I'll talk a little bit later on who the trust is not for. But this is how it works. You've got an individual with a highly appreciated asset, sells it to the trust. Trust turns around and sells it to the buyer. The trust ends up with capital that we invest to fulfill the payments on a promissory note right back to you. You're allowed to take some principal payments if you want. You're just going to pay ordinary capital gains at that time. But most people just kick the can down the road because they're earning so much more income by putting that capital appreciation back in their pocket and redeploying. And we're getting some pretty good returns on some of these investments, right, Gary? So
Yep, we are.
yeah, and that's the thing is real estate can provide a really good stable way of generating good returns, both on income side and the capital appreciation side. So let's move on to what kinds of things can be deferred. Now, obviously, mobile home parks can be deferred when you sell a mobile home park, but it can also defer on the sales of businesses, professional practices, and commercial real estate investment opportunities as well. So the other thing that it can defer is capital gains from the sale of a high-end primary residence. Now, if you're a real estate broker, you know the 121 exemption, if you're married, can provide $500,000 of deferral. But what if you've got $4 million of capital appreciation on your primary residence? And you and I both know that a primary residence does not qualify for a 1031 exchange. Now, major private stock positions can also be deferred. Bitcoin sales can be deferred. Collector car portfolios can be deferred. Artwork and collectibles can be deferred. So for those of you who maybe own businesses or high-end primary residences, both a business and a high-end primary residence don't qualify for 1031 exchanges. This is why most people in those situations end up paying taxes on the sale of both their business or their high-end primary residence. If you got a high-end primary residence, you need to talk to Trevor or Tracy and let them know if you're interested in selling, there could potentially be an option for you to defer through the capital gains tax by using this strategy, the deferred sales trust. So for those of you who want to do 1031 exchanges, maybe you're looking at this going, it's not really my speed, it's not really my flavor. I want to do a 1031 exchange, period. I can help you with those as well. However, I help you set them up so they cannot fail. So let me say that again. I can help you with your 1031 exchange, but we set it up so that you cannot fail. Okay? This is done a couple of different ways, but I just want to share how the deferred sales trust can be a rescue plan for a failing 1031 exchange. First of all, before you start your 1031 exchange, ladies and gentlemen, you've got to give me a call because we need to use the right qualified intermediary who works with and knows about the deferred sales trust. Sometimes they come to me in the 44th day or 43rd day, and if we have time, we have to trust or hope that the qualified intermediary they're currently working with will actually, work with us. They have to approve of what we're going to do with this. So you want to come to me first and foremost to use the right qualified intermediary that knows how to work with the deferred sales trust. What happens is if you either cannot identify in 45 days or close on the project in 180 days, then the 1031 could possibly fail. So the proceeds from the sale of the qualified intermediary, if we use the right qualified intermediary, the proceeds of the sale from the qualified intermediary account can drop right into the deferred sales trust, and you would avoid taking constructive receipt of the funds. This keeps you from having to pay capital gains tax on the proceeds and providing a sense of security in knowing that if something goes wrong during the 1031 process, you aren't left writing a life-changing check to Uncle Sam. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. This is probably the most important one. How do we know this thing is legal? Our structure falls, the deferred sales trust falls under IRC code 453 as an installment sale. Now, I always like to mention that there are some knockoff strategies out there that they will use the same tax code, but they do not work the same. one of which is called the monetized installment sale, which for those of you who know about it can obviously see why it doesn't work. And I'm not going to go into that today. It's been very clear for many years that it was a ticking time bomb for the IRS to make a listed transaction, which they currently did. So when you're looking up the deferred sales trust and or IRC code 453 on Google or doing your internet research online, you'll probably see something called the monetized installment sale. I've had a lot of people, CPA, come back to me and say, we don't want any part of the deferred sales trust. It's on the IRS's dirty dozen list, and what they're thinking of is the monetized installment sale. You must understand that these things are two totally separate things, or two totally different animals, and they're not related in any way. The deferred sales trust has been around for over 25 years, and they've created over 5,000 trusts. The structure has been audited by the IRS over a dozen times. And every single time, the cases have been fully closed out with no changes required in any way, shape, or form. So it's batting 1,000. Now you need to understand that using the deferred sales trust, which is doing an installment sale, basically, it does not put you at any risk of an audit, any more than just selling the property and paying the taxes would put you at risk for an audit. However, audits randomly do happen. So let's discuss audit defense, right? In the case of an audit, you may be wondering if you'd be on the hook for the legal fees of defending the trust, right? That you are not on the hook. Our attorneys stand behind the deferred sales trust and will defend in an audit at no cost to you. So that is important to know, that if for some reason you have a random audit, that our attorneys are going to defend their work on the trust at no additional cost to you. Now we're going to open it up for some question and answers. We're at the hour mark, or about 10 or 15 minutes away. Any questions that I can field at this point?
Jake, how come more people don't know about this strategy?
That's a great question. And this strategy, the deferred sales trust, while it's been around for 25 years, is very much more popular on the east side of the United States because I would call it, there's more older money there, right? Folks are a lot older on the eastern side of the United States than the western. And the 1031 exchange up till this point has worked. So there really hasn't been a problem up until recently, when we had the baby boomers getting to the age of where they're thinking, you know what? I don't know if I'm super excited about dealing with trash, toilets, and tenants. I'm 65, I'm 75 years old. My kids don't want to work in the business. They don't want to manage the real estate. They don't want to manage my park. They want to move over to New York or Florida or, wherever else and do their own thing and have their own life. Well, now that's a problem, because 1031 exchanges are great when you're younger, you want to be active and you want to grow your portfolio, right? Because you have to exchange it for something of equal or greater value. You have to replace the debt. And while that's great, when you're 75 years old, you may not think that's so exciting to sell one trailer park and buy another trailer park. So it really hasn't been a problem until just recently, that people have wanted to not only exit real estate, but they've also wanted to be passive in their investments, but still take advantage of the real estate. So this is kind of a threefold thing that the Deferred Sales Trust is really good at solving or addressing, those three issues. How do we exit? How do we still be in real estate? How do we be passive? So my answer to most folks is 1031 exchanges have worked up until the last few years. And now most people won't tell you that they don't want to sell. But if you ask them, hey, if you could sell and you could exit and still be in real estate, but not have to deal with trash, toilets, and tenants, and not have to pay capital gains tax, I bet you 4 out of 10 would admit that they would love to do that, and probably 8 out of 10 would love to do that, but only 4 out of 10 would admit it, right?
Yeah,
I
so
would-
I guess one of my questions, just kind of piggybacking on what you were just talking about, especially for the older owners that are looking to create generational wealth or set up some sort of plan for their heirs. This sounds like it would be a good strategy for that.
It really can be. And here's the thing is we structure the promissory notes for 10-year periods. At the end of the 10 years, you can renegotiate another 10 years. The big thing that you need to understand is if you do a deferred sales trust, you will not qualify for a step up in basis anymore at you and your spouse's death. Okay. So that could be perceived as a downside. I don't really think of it as a downside because I ask people, look, how long do you want to defer for? And they say, well, probably for the rest of my life. And I said, okay, well, how long do you want your beneficiaries to be able to defer for? And they say, well, as long as they want. Well, the deferred sales trust will allow you to do that in both situations. You can continue to renegotiate for another 10 years until you pass away, your spouse passes away. Then the promissory note, which is what you own, can pass into a trust, into your trust that you should have set up. And that trust can then distribute your interest to your kids, and they can step right into your shoes and continue to receive payments. Or they can say, you know what, I'd rather just wind it down. I'll take my proceeds and pay capital gains tax on them and walk away. So if the kids want to continue to defer, they can do the same thing where they go out 10 years, restructure a new promissory note, another 10 years, so on and so forth. And it can be a wonderful, wonderful way to be able to pass on wealth to the next generation without creating arguments. Because if you leave a trailer park to 4 different kids, I guarantee you, you're going to end up with a mess that probably I can't solve. So it's better to sell it while you're alive, defer the capital gains, get twice as much income or hopefully more income than you were earning on that asset itself. And then when you pass away, it goes in, 25% to each kid or 33% to each kid, or you can split it equally amongst your kids, and you're passing investment securities and not real property.
Perfect. Thank you for taking the time to answer that. When is it too late to deploy this strategy?
So it's too late to deploy, and I'll follow that up with some other important information. If you have already closed and taken constructive receipt, or if you have already removed all contingencies. So if you have a purchase and sale agreement signed, but there are still contingencies in place, you are not too late. You can still go back, put language in the trust that assigns your sale proceeds to the trust and not take constructive receipt. But as soon as you remove all contingencies, while the money may not be in your bank, the government still constitutes it as constructive receipt. Now, to piggyback on that, let me just say one thing. You may be asking, how do I know if my sale qualifies for the deferred sales trust? And here's how you would know if it would qualify. If you have $1 million subject to capital gains tax and $1 million or more of net proceeds, the deferred sales trust could definitely be a home run for you.
Very, very good. And the last question that I have is, what is the first step that I should take if I have an interest in selling, but I'm not sure where to start?
Well, I would say, call Tracy or Trevor and set up a free consultation with myself. Here's my contact information for everyone. You just want to email me or call the office and set up a free consultation. I'm here to basically help you understand what your options are and, help you figure out what direction is best for you to go. Now, I will say I want to talk about the fees really quick. We work on a conditional basis with the Deferred Sales Trust. So that means if you end up not using the trust, you don't pay anything. So the fees are 1.5% on the first million, 1.25% on each additional million. So if you've got a $2 million deal, the one-time fee is $15,000 on the first million, $12,500 on the additional million. And so what is that? $27,500 for $2 million. It is a one-time fee. And what that one-time fee goes to pay for is to set up the trust and for lifetime audit defense. So if you are ever audited, the attorneys will defend it at no cost to you. The ongoing fees, really the important one that I'm going to mention before we move on, is it's about 1 to 2%, no more than 2% of ongoing fees that would pay me and the trustee. For the most part, it's usually about 1%, but it could be up to 2%, but no more. So to give you an idea, if your note is 7%, is written for 7%. So if $10 million sale, you write your note for 7%, that means it's going to pay you $700,000 a year. That means I need to earn 8 or 9%. Okay. So my job is to go out and find the investments to earn the 8 to 9% that we need to at least net out that 7% to you. So that's how that works. And you know, I'm not going to say percentages, but Gary will tell you we do a pretty good job at outpacing the note terms. I do want to mention a couple other things if we have time, Tracy and Trevor. The other things, the other capital gains deferral strategies that I specialize in and work with every single day is your 1031 exchanges. So if you're looking or wanting to do a 1031 exchange, maybe the Deferred Sales Trust is too scary, you don't understand it, I would recommend you go through the due diligence process, but we can absolutely deal with 1031 exchanges. Gary, we actually used a 1031 exchange along with the Deferred Sales Trust. But I work with extensively 1031 exchanges. We use Delaware statutory trusts. We use 721 exchanges. We use bonus depreciation. We use qualified opportunity zones. And I'm not going to go into detail like we did with the Deferred Sales Trust. Or we can use a combo of sometimes 2 or 3 of those. But what you need to know is if you're wanting to do a 1031 exchange, who's your first phone call? Call Tracy and have her set up a meeting with me. If you want to do a potential sale, call Tracy or Trevor and have them set up a meeting with me. I deal with all of those strategies, and you need to be working with someone that understands how to do them so that you're not going to risk failing in your 1031 exchange. It is an extremely difficult, stressful process. I like to set them up so that we pretty much guarantee that it's not going to fail. That's a conversation for another episode, maybe our second episode, but Delaware statutory trusts are also amazing. I want to thank Tracy and Trevor for having me on here. And if there's any other questions, feel free to shoot them out there. But the first step is if you're even thinking about selling, call Tracy and Trevor, set up a meeting, a free consultation with me, and we'll help you figure out what options might work best for you.
Awesome. Yeah, that I think everybody needs to go back and watch this. I know I'll go back and watch this, like you said, a couple times and really soak in the information because it is something new. Not a lot of people seem to know about it, and it's really useful and flexible.
I do want to address one other thing, and this is the reason why most people unfortunately end up paying the capital gains tax, and that is this. Like I said from the beginning, your CPA, your real estate broker, your financial planner, your attorney probably has not heard of some of these strategies. Do not let them scare you away from doing your due diligence. We can
Mhm.
set up a free, no obligation meeting with my attorneys and your CPA, your attorney, your financial planner to help them understand what scares off your tax professionals, your attorneys, is that they don't know what they're getting into. They don't know what forms to file. They don't know what processes to take you through. They are the ones that don't have the confidence, right? So you have to understand that my team, my trustee, the attorneys I work with, myself, we show them what they need to do. We provide them and point them in the directions of the forms. We walk them through the process so they do not need to figure it out on their own. We will
Jake.
we'll spoon
Yeah.
feed everything.
From personal experience, I have a 30-year partner CPA who's done my accounting for 30 years for my business. It took me 4 phone calls with him, with Jake, the trustee, the tax attorney on the other end, 4 phone calls before he started getting it that this wasn't an installment sale or whatever. What was the other, the dirty
Monetized installment sale.
monetized installment sale. And he was very skeptical. Oh, it's right there on the internet, you know. But after about four conversations, he said, "Well, let me do some analysis for you, Gary." And he ran my investment through. Hey, take the money, pay the taxes, invested at, I don't know, 8% for 10 years. Put it in the trust. Don't pay the taxes. And he goes, "Yeah, you're better off in the trust by quite a bit." He goes, personally, he said, I wouldn't do it because I'm conservative, but he says, totally up to you. So I kind of I went against his initial reaction, and I had to just make sure I got to that point where I was comfortable with it. And I didn't just listen to him in his first, no way, don't do this. Cause that's what he said, you know, and I love the guy. He's very good. He's kept me out of trouble in many, many ways. And he is now on board with this concept and has been very helpful. So.
Literally everyone that's been willing to go through the due diligence process, usually if they're a tax professional, CPA, attorney, real estate broker, they end up getting on board and actually bringing us new deals because they realize the power of it. But with that said, I want to thank Tracy and Trevor, you guys again. Hopefully I can be a resource to any one of your folks out there if you're watching this right now. If you've got questions, don't hesitate to just call Tracy or Trevor and set up a meeting. I am here to be a resource. I'm an educator. I just want to help out. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you as well, because we have the same commitment to all of our clients as well. So I wasn't going to let this one go. It's like, no, we're digging into this, and for sure, it's everybody needs to watch it more than once. But thank you for your time. This has been invaluable, and we look forward to working with our clients, and we look forward to doing evaluations to get everybody started, to see where they're at, to see how this might fit into a partnership with you as well. So thank you again, though. It's been wonderful having you here.
Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Trevor. It's great to be here.
Thank you too, Gary. Thanks for sharing your story. And thank you, Jake, for the education. Looking forward to working with you.
All right, guys.
Take care, everybody. Good luck, everybody.
Thanks.
You too.